Can you beat Mother 3 at level 1? There are 4 rules. Number 1, I have to beat every required boss fight with a party of level 1 characters, no exceptions. Second, I'm only allowed to use base level PSI moves, meaning the PSI characters already know, such as Freeze Alpha and Kumatora or Life Up Alpha and Lucas, and PSI learned from events like Flash and the levels of PK Love. Third, I can only use items that are possible to obtain at said points in the game. And fourth, to have fun and be myself. Let's do it. The first required battle to do, that's actually a challenge, are the Fireflies in Sunshine Forest during the fire. This battle is pretty tough. The challenge's main difficulty is the pure amount of it that's totally up to chance. There are tons of attacks enemies can do that will just kill every party member immediately, and all that starts from the get-go. To get through, I just had to pray that they use their fire attack as often as possible. That or just waste their turn by doing nothing. Something we'll be hoping for a lot in this run. I stocked up on nut bread and baked yams, but they're of little help when there's only one party member, Flint. And if they all did their regular attack on the same turn, I was donezo anyway. I had to heal any time Flint's health went below 40 to 45, so he's glass here. Flint luckily has an ability called Swing though, that hits every enemy in one turn, so by getting 3 of those out, I made it. It's pure luck and it probably took me like 60 tries to do it. Next fight is only a couple screens away, the Flying Mouse in Lighter's cabin. You'll want to stock up on healing items again, but I didn't. Flint can only do 1 damage to it per hit at level 1, so Lighter's Lumber isn't even any help here. Pretty much required you hit decent combos throughout it. If you can't, you're doomed from the start. Get good at combos and pray he wastes turns poofing his hair. Only took me a few tries, but I had to practice the combo a lot. The next fight is the reconstructed Caribou, and boy is it something. Luckily, you'll have Duster's wall staples to immobilize it for a couple turns at a time, but they're only so helpful. You need insane luck, and be able to near perfect every single combo, and hope he doesn't just kill everyone once he breaks out of the wall staples. So far, this was by far the hardest. The Flying Mouse has 110 HP. The reconstructed Caribou has 512, almost 5 times as much. This one took me hours and a lot of trial, error, and tears. But it didn't have to. I just totally forgot about something. The Thunder Bombs. They infinitely restock outside Wes's house, and I just totally blanked. They do about 10 damage a pop and would have made this a breeze if I just got him pinned with the wall staples. I forgot though. I did end up beating him, but man did I feel like an idiot when this was pointed out to me. I've been using the debug room to jump around the game to each boss and reset my character's levels back to Uno, so it slipped my mind. Next up is the Mecha Drago, already at the end of chapter 1, and he was far easier than the Caribou, and dare I say, even sort of fun. This fight boils down to 2 things. 1, using the Drago Fang, and 2, unloading bombs. Thunder, running, everything you have. That's it. I didn't even have to heal. By just chucking bombs as fast as I could just let the scrolling HP meter and Alec take care of my health. When Flint gets down to around 20 HP, Alec will use restorative herbs to keep him alive, but only has 3 per battle. But by setting off 6 or 7 bombs on it, it'll be over before that's a problem. Just had to make sure I held down the A button to advance the text as quickly as possible to not die from its final stand attack. In the English version you need 34 to survive, and in the Japanese version you need 32. On to chapter 2, the first bout is against the zombies. Super easy, just 2 thunder bombs and a hit will take care of all of them. Some nut bread might be good to have. Then is Mr. Passion, a mini-boss I've seen people have trouble with in the vanilla game. First thing is first, put him to sleep. If you can't get it off on him before he attacks, you might as well just reset, as his strongest attack is pretty much guaranteed mortal damage. Once he was down, I just unloaded bombs and hoped they didn't wake him up too quickly. Rinse and repeat, sleep bombs. Like Passion, I just got into a rhythm with it. Also hope he throws candles first or wastes his turn lost in the music. The next fight is a bit of a mixed bag, the Clayman. I actually beat him pretty quickly without too much trouble, and forgot to press record. I actually went into the fight with too many healing items and not enough offensive, and need to reset a few times because I ran out of items. Wes is a great help here, as you'll need a secret thief arts technique to help you out. Keep in mind though, Wes will never kill a boss, so once you haven't seen him do it for a while, you can assume you're pretty close to the end of the battle. The inventory balance is the main trouble I had. I needed enough bombs in combination with Wes's attacks to deplete his 879 HP, but also needed lots of healing as pretty much every attack from him one-shots Duster. I got lucky putting it to sleep and getting a bunch of damage off on it a few times, but it wasn't a surefire tactic, as West can wake it up with his attacks. I had to play the debuff game with this guy, smoke bomb him to lower his accuracy, tickle stick him to lower his offense, then get into that sleep attack pattern, as well as making sure to have healing items, especially for when he would collapse to the ground. Beat him, and then it was already on to the boss of the chapter. The Oso Snake isn't too bad either though, since the surveillance mechs have a chance drop for a pencil rocket, which is incredibly useful. Adjacently, Pigmass often drop pork chips, which heal 50 HP, so practically a full recovery. 7 pencil rocks will do the trick since it has a little over 1200 HP, and that's assuming West doesn't attack, so it's very doable and didn't take me too many tries. Kumatora is not too helpful though, since her HP is so low. I just had both of them fire pencil rockets on turn 1 and that already put me at a pretty hefty advantage, so it wasn't too much trouble even after I lost her. Its wave attack is the only potential problem, but as long as Duster has roughly 25 HP, he'll survive it. Probably the easiest boss of the run so far. Chapter 3 is a roller coaster and it starts with the Cactus Wolf. It's luck based. Pray and hope Facade attacks and specifically uses bombs, as Salsa is absolutely frail. This actually wasn't my first time doing a level 1 Salsa versus Cactus Wolf fight though, as I'd previously done it for my low level Salsa solo run series, which you can watch via this card or the link in the description. The main thing to remember was I had 2 running bombs from the desert, but could only use 1 on him, as I had to save the second one for later. I didn't even bother with my beloved Monkey Mimic, as the damage you do in this fight isn't remotely worth it and puts Salsa in great danger of getting killed the next move. His other monkey tricks aren't helpful either. Again, Facade, ironically, is your greatest ally here. This one really has no rhyme or reason though, just sorta had to throw myself at it until I eventually won. Next are the Gooey Goos in the underground passage. This one's pretty straightforward. Use the second running bomb from the desert, then the one right next to them. Takes care of them easily enough though, I had some bad luck. Scrape by though. Ending chapter 3 already, the Pork Tank, as if it wasn't a tough enough battle in the normal game. This fight, to put it bluntly, sucks. It's a lot of trial and error. The tank is extremely random, so it's impossible to know who it's going to attack first, and can attack both Salsa and Kumatora at the same time, which just altogether means reset. This one really stumped me. Without having enough healing items to keep Salsa alive to heal Kumatora so she could use PSI, which already isn't very effective since I'm not allowed to use Thunder, and with her PSI being limited, I just had no idea if it was even possible to output enough damage to even beat it. Monkey Mimic won't get us there, and both their attacks only do 1 damage. Luckily, there was a way. I stored a bunch of pork chips and pencil rockets from Osohe with Kumatora to use back in chapter 2, meaning she'd have them here when she joined the party. I still had to be really lucky with healing the right person many times, but with that, she was able to share them with Salsa, and they were both able to share the glory. Salsa died. Regardless, we made it through, and I started getting pretty cocky about this. Mother 3 at level 1 wasn't so bad after all. So I thought. Chapter 4 has only one required battle, the Jealous Base. An infamously unbalanced boss, as the player was intended originally to have Flint with them, but he was cut late in development, and all I had were Lucas and Boney. This is a fight many consider really hard in the vanilla game at like level 16 or even 20. Was this even possible? My optimism wasn't carrying me far enough at this point to think so. And I don't know enough about the inner workings of the game to know what would even be required of me to be able to do this. I was totally lost. So, I seeked help from none other than GGFan, one of the best Mother 3 players in the world. For more than 16 years, this man has thrown his hat in the ring for some of the most difficult challenges ever conceived for this game. He'd know what to do. So, I asked him, and he said it was impossible. He told me you'd probably need to bring in items and armor that you couldn't normally obtain by then to pull it off, but this was against the rules I set, so that was out of the question. But then we thought it through a bit more. The big problem is the Jealous Base's minions, the Gently Weeping Guitar and the Beaten Drum. The battle always starts with their jam attack, which hits both party members twice, making for 4 attacks to deal with out the gate. When GGFan himself tried this challenge, he added Flint to the party, making the damage spread more. But I also wasn't allowed to do that. I'd need to survive, take them out, then deal with the base itself one-on-one to even remotely come close. But how could this be possible? Well, we figured out a strategy. Turn 1, I had to make sure at least 2 of the attacks from the jam session missed. This would ensure they'd both survive long enough for Boney to heal Lucas, and Lucas to throw a Thunder Bomb. Somehow, Boney miraculously survived, with the jam session only landing one hit on Lucas. The next step to turn 1, and maybe the tougher part, was that the Thunder Bomb had to paralyze the Jealous base. Its paralysis defense stat is 60, meaning it will work essentially 4 out of 10 times. But man, did it feel lower. I died over and over and over and over. I couldn't even get them to miss enough times to even reach the point of the turn Lucas threw the bomb. I got to that point several times, but no dice, and neither of them could outspeed them, so it had to be this turn. Eventually though, after enough attempts, it did. Turn 2 and onward, fire pencil rockets and pray he stays paralyzed. You can get them from the mice cellar in the attic, and need 8 or 9 to take him down. Luckily, I had Boney still, something I was very much not counting on. So from there, he was able to pitch in too. The rate of an enemy staying paralyzed, I'd say, is about 50-50 per turn. But the game reeled back a bit here, and I was able to take on the remainder of the fight with ease. Though it did scare me when he snapped out of the status altogether at the end. Before moving on though, we need to take on Lord Passion, the optional rematch at Osohe. I could have technically skipped this one if I wanted, but I needed something. Lord Passion isn't too bad, but he's not a pushover either. You need to make him cry, and if you can, put him to sleep. But I forgot to do that, so again, I made this much harder on myself by accident. The main things I had to hold out for was him inflicting crying, which doesn't affect item usage, so it means nothing, attack one party member at a time, and waste turns lost in the music. Not too bad, and overall I'd say he was on the easier ends of things so far. Really is just the original boss again, but with more HP. By beating him though, I got the mystical shoes for Duster, which are absolutely crucial for the challenge going forward. Contrasting, the Fierce Pork Trooper is much easier. Just need one party member to survive long enough to immobilize him with some DCMC gear, then have the party unload pencil rockets. Was able to do this pretty much in one try. Next up is the Forlorn Junkeep. Similar to Lord Passion, I needed him to only attack one party member and inflict status. He can inflict nausea, which in theory can be more dangerous than Passion's crying, since it prevents eating food to restore health, and since I lost Lucas early on, I wasn't allowed to use Life Up, since Kumatora doesn't learn it until level 11. But honestly, if he hits any of them once, they're not surviving anyway. It took a couple tries, but I eventually got a smoke bomb off on him, which helped, and by avoiding him using his group attack, I was able to do this one with relative ease. The rematch with the Pork Trooper is as simple as the first. Have one party member with DCMC merchandise survive long enough to immobilize him, then spam super bombs. But boy was that the calm before the storm. Mr. Genitor. He opens with a group attack that'll kill multiple party members, or everyone, or a powerful attack on one party member. This is a time I just had to hope he'd use the singular attack and miss. I equipped rubber capes to the humans so they'd survive his discharge zap attack, which hits everyone, and I think that is one of the most important deciding factors to the whole fight. It also helps right before he uses that attack that he has to store electricity, basically allowing me to get like 1,000 free damage off on him. The real saving grace here though came right after, when I broke his charger right when he started trying to store electricity, which usually heals 100 HP to him for 3 or so turns. I don't know how, but by some miracle I took him down without too much trouble. The main thing for most of these battles is surviving the first turn. It's almost always the hardest part. That and group attacks. If I saw either of those, I would just have to reset. Getting close, on to Chapter 7 now. I started by going directly to Saturn Valley because we needed Duster back as soon as possible. His smoke bomb was just too helpful to ignore. To get him back, you need to take down some Pigmask Majors and a Freight Bot though. Not bad at all, only 2 super bombs are needed to win the fight. Unless you have bad luck, this one's easy. As is the following battle at the start of the volcano, where you have to beat 2 Pigmask captains. Both go down with just 1 super bomb. The problems start again though at the end of the volcano, with New Facade. It's not actually as bad as it may initially seem. The main thing is, once again, hope he doesn't use group attacks. He does that, it's pretty much over. Saturn Valley sells cups of life noodles, so one could also opt to get some of those, but I didn't. Aside from group attacks though, I was pretty alright. He often also used his dazzling light after charging someone though, which will just cost them their life, so again, life noodles can be helpful. Luckily the fight can get easier as it goes, as he'll waste turns smiling boldly the further you get. Had to rely on him doing that a couple times, but when he eventually did, the battle was as good as won. Oh, also, this was another one I beat and forgot to press record, so yeah, did this one twice too. The Steel Mech Gorilla is up next. I grabbed Lucas's awesome crown before it, and it was another one that wasn't as bad as it seems to be. The fight's really just dependent on getting PK Flash or a smoke bomb off on him at the start to inflict crying. It won't guarantee the win, but it will get you a whole lot closer from the get-go. Sometimes that didn't even work though. I was pretty much dependent on him missing, which thankfully he did several times towards the end of the fight, and I actually ran out of bombs for Lucas, so it all came down to Boney, and with his dying breath, he did it. After that, I swung by the Chimera Lab. Didn't do the almost Mecha Lion fight since it's not required to win. Then I got Kumatora back, which I'm now realizing you could do before taking on New Facade and the Mecharilla, but details. Before we can get to Tane Tane Island though, we have to deal with Master Eddie, and he is a handful. The entire fight really depends on him not using his Whirlpool attack. If he did even once, I had to start over. With everyone firing, it'd take about 12 or 13 super bombs to beat him. But I wasn't so fortunate to have everyone, so this really came down to the wire. Besides the Whirlpool though, you have to deal with the Whirlpool, his final attack before the battle ends. Duster needs at least 16 HP to survive it, so it came sorta close. Now on Tane Tane, something many don't know is you can walk right around the zombie shroom, not a required fight. But you don't care about that, do you? It's time to get on to the one we've all been waiting for. The Barrier Trio at level 1. For this fight, I got elemental pendants from Saturn Valley to half the damage from Thunder and Fire, depending on the party member. With 4,000 HP, these three take a lot of super bombs to beat, about 14 or 15. I was able to get the first 4 off easily, since the Barrier Trio always use their first turn to call out a pose. I needed them to cast Freeze as much as possible, as it only attacks one party member at a time. All else was really dangerous. It was all about hoping for that, then hoping I healed the right person each time to save them. Eventually, I did lose some of my battalion though. The easiest part of this fight, funnily enough, was dealing with Starstorm, which just required I healed beforehand. It certainly wasn't easy, but also not one of the harder ones, mostly due to them opening by wasting a turn. I'd overall say this was a decently mid-ranged fight in difficulty. All that's left for this chapter is the boss, the Masked Man. But there's a problem. Before the player can fight him, they're forced into a battle against 2 Pig Mask Majors and a Pig Mask Colonel. Now the fight's not the issue, it's pathetically easy, in fact 2 super bombs and it's over. The problem is this leads directly into the Masked Man fight. Why is this a problem? Well, like I said before, I've been using the debug room to set my party's levels back to 1 after each fight. But since these two are back to back, I'm not able to do that, meaning the minimum level I can fight him is at level 21. Fighting him at that level is still a challenging battle, don't get me wrong, but it's not level 1. I talked to my friend Malfazura to try and reverse engineer the GameShark code for doubling EXP gains to setting it to zeroing them, but that wasn't as clear of a process as we were hoping. I found another code that lets you customize gains altogether, but for some reason it stops working after chapter 3, probably due to the party not shifting around as much after that point. So, did this mean the challenge was a failure? I thought so. Then it hit me. The key to completing this challenge the right way was this, the Battle Memory. An item that lets you view previous enemies and practice combos on them in complete safety as they won't attack. So why was this the key? Well, I found another code that allows for it to also work as a way to rematch enemies. So, I was able to go ahead and beat the Masked Man at level 21, which wasn't too bad honestly, then go into the battle memory and rematch him after setting my levels back. Thus, the challenge continues. As for the actual battle, it's very luck-based. He's vulnerable to crying, so I opened with a smoke bomb to lower his accuracy, integral to standing a chance. He's also susceptible to being frozen, but I didn't know that, so I didn't. Had to rely a lot on him missing. The big trouble with him is not the amount of damage he does, it's that he attacks twice per turn, and can attack multiple party members. Because he moves twice, often the Chosen 4 can't survive the animations to get to them being healed, and if he used PK Love, just had to reset. Life noodles are a necessity. It came down to me reviving someone every turn, and getting lucky with just barely getting enough super bombs off on him in time, which he resists anyway. He has 5,000 HP, making for a really tough battle. If I had to do it again, I'd do everything I could to freeze him too. That and crying are the name of the game. Finally, Chapter 8, and it starts with Miracle Facade. Similar to the last fight with him, I was just hoping not to see his group attacks. Aside from those, he's not too bad, though I ran into some trouble a few times when he'd heal and then I'd be out of super bombs. He's very susceptible to being frozen, but to be honest, I didn't know that until writing this. The good thing is he has a lot of turn wasters. Inflicting nausea isn't as big of a deal as it seems, as anyone will die in one hit anyway, so losing healing for a party member, it's not the end of the world. He also wastes turns by smiling boldly and debuffs he casts that don't matter, and in fact, it was that he used one of these at a bad time that ultimately let me win the battle. Not the easiest or toughest battle, just hoping he doesn't take everyone out in one fell swoop. Next is a required fight against a single hippo launcher. Really simple, as long as it doesn't fire a ton of missiles out the gate, it's a breeze. Up further in Empire Porky though, there's another beast. The Natural Killer Cyborg. The strategy is to pray to God. That's it. It has 2 harmless attacks and one that only attacks one party member, all of which I wanted to see as much of as possible. It also casts a shield every 4 turns, which I could just nullify with the Shield Snatcher if I wanted to. On the other hand, it also has a bomb attack that hits 3 of the party and its end of the century beam that hits everyone. Now, I've forgotten quite a bit throughout this challenge up to this point, but this was by far my biggest blunder. I didn't realize I was allowed to use PK Starstorm. I just totally blanked and forgot it was an event move, meaning it was fair game for me. So, I didn't. And boy did I pay the price. It's nearly 3 super bombs worth of damage I wasn't tapping into at all. For all intents and purposes, this fight should have been impossible for me, especially with the conditions I was under. But something happened. He killed himself by using lightning on Lucas. Stealing Klaus's thunder a bit there, aren't you? For real though, even though I won by pure chance, it should have been much more possible than I made it. Lev Omega and Starstorm are the path to victory. But was the hard part over now? Not even close. The Porkybots are by far the hardest fight up to this point. They all will kill any party member pretty much in one hit, can attack 3 of them per turn collectively, explode when they die, have shields, and I had to beat 8 of them along with other random enemies. On top of all that too, the battle starts with every party member at 1 HP. I tried, and I tried, and I tried, and 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 tried, but I just couldn't do it. I thought, this is impossible. It's over. Run ends here. But I'd come so far and was in the final stretch. I was at the edge of the world. I wasn't ready to give up. I was going to need help though. I went to the only person I could turn to for something like this. Back to GG Fan. It was time to develop an in-depth plan. You have to understand, he's been at the Mother 3 challenge game for so long, he can see the Matrix. He can see how battles play out in his mind, and after hours of discussing and trial and error, we devised a plan. First step was Duster. This is what we needed the mystical shoes for. I hadn't been using them up until this point, and full disclosure, I didn't even have them. I skipped Lord Passion, as I figured the stat boosts from them weren't major. But I overlooked one huge thing: HP. By equipping them, Duster gets a buff of 15 additional health, and that is not a small difference. This also meant he started the fight with 13 HP instead of 1. He was going to be our tank that'd get us through. So I went back and got them. But 63 HP for this fight is still less than desirable. The second a hit's landed on him, he'll die, so what good is it? The mementos. I hadn't even thought of them up until now. The player gets 7 of them by this point, and they act as instant revives for the party member carrying them in their inventory. So step 2 was to give Duster all of them. But we still needed the others to help out. Duster can't take them all on his own. So step 3 was to load everyone up with 2 major items: Cups of Life Noodles and Super Bombs. And I gave Boney some regular healing stuff as well. With all this planned, we figured out turn by turn what we needed to happen for me to get through the hardest battle in the game. Nonetheless, it still requires astronomical luck. The bots themselves had to miss and waste turns constantly. The party had to be reviving each other every other turn, then do so again when they'll die from the Porkybot explosions. This included at least 2 of them not attacking on the first turn so Boney could heal Duster, then the following turn defend with him so the 4th Super Bomb thrown would take out the first 3 Porkybots, killing everyone only for him to be revived, then killed again by the 3rd explosion, then revived again. Just as planned. A big question mark for this was also the bots eventually start calling in random enemies. These can be many different things, so I had to hope he'd pull out ones that were relatively harmless. Fright bots are the best to pull, but the ones I got weren't too bad, especially since they kept targeting Duster and his defense stat could outstand them. It took blood, sweat, and tears, but eventually I was able to defeat them, and with 2 mementos to spare. The last major boss of the game, it's Porky himself. Funny enough, he was one of the easier bosses, having multiple turn wasters and an overall pretty predictable attacking pattern. Came down to healing at the right times and chucking super bombs at him. Would have been much easier if I thought of using Starstorm, but we got the job done regardless. With that, one challenge remains: the Masked Man. While many might claim he's a glorified cutscene, you still gotta pay attention to your health. The good thing was, since he's faster than Lucas, all I had to do for the most part was heal every turn. He'd hit Lucas, Lucas would heal. The key here is Lucas's armor. With nothing, he only has 22 psychic points to use. But by equipping the awesome crown, awesome ring, awesome cloak, and the mystical stick, it goes up to 122. So by simply using Life Up Alpha, he can stand toe-to-toe with the Masked Man. Only tricky part is when he uses the shield killer then attacks, as Lucas will go first that turn. Other than that though, it's really straightforward. It's just a matter of making it to the end, which I realize Lucas will just have enough magic to do before diving into his healing items. But that might not even be needed if the Masked Man misses it all. I actually died part way through the fight, but was revived by one of my remaining mementos. Whew! With that, the battle comes to its emotional conclusion and Lucas pulls the final needle. So, can you beat Mother 3 at level 1? Yes, you can! It's tough and very much based on getting lucky, but it is possible. Thank you to GGFan and Malphazur for helping out.